Hello, everyone. Do you believe that love can connect the living and the dead? Let me tell you the true story of Finn and Ilara, a tale that sends chills down my spine every time I recall it. The second time the fishing line twitched, Finn had learned his lesson. Unlike the first time, he didn't yank the rod immediately. Instead, he let the tip of the rod dip lower, feeling the weight, before pulling hard with a practiced jerk. The effort was immense. Finn had to brace himself to avoid tumbling into the icy waters of the lake. He muttered under his breath, "This one's a beast." Earlier, he'd lost a fish after hauling it above the water's surface. So this time, Finn was determined not to let it slip away. He gripped the rod tightly, ensuring the hook sank deep into the fish's jaw. But this fish was no ordinary catch. It thrashed wildly, dragging the line in circles beneath the dark, rippling water. Its strength was uncanny, almost unnatural, making Finn feel as though he could barely hold on. He tightened his grip, muscles straining, when suddenly the creature surged upward, breaking the surface with a violent splash. Finn gasped, "Good Lord, it's massive." The fish was impossibly large, its scales glinting under the pale moonlight, in a way that seemed almost otherworldly. The onlookers, nearby local fishermen, huddled around a flickering lantern, gaped in awe, and shouted, "Wrap the line around that tree to hold it." Before Finn could react, the creature thrashed again, as if taunting him. Then, with a sickening snap, the line went slack. "It's gone!" Finn cried. He reeled in the line, his heart sinking as he saw the frayed end. "The line broke," he muttered, frustration mixing with a creeping sense of unease. The air around the lake felt heavier now, the wind carrying a faint, unnatural whisper. Disgusted, Finn tossed his rod aside and stood, ignoring the murmurs of the fishermen around him. They tried to encourage him. "You've got a knack for this. Tie on a new line and keep going. In all my years fishing these waters, I've never seen a fish that size. It's just the line, take mine. It's stronger." But Finn shook his head, his voice low. "Twice is enough. I'm done." He climbed onto his bicycle and pedaled away from the lake, the misty air clinging to his skin. The fish were a loss, sure, but Finn had only come to the lake to pass the time. Within minutes, his mind drifted from the fish to the small, dimly lit tavern by the river, a place he'd visited every day since arriving in this quiet, foggy village. It wasn't the ale or the rustic charm that drew him back. It was her Ilara, the tavern keeper's daughter. Having lived in the bustling city of London for years, Finn had met plenty of striking women, but none held a candle to Ilara. Beauty was haunting, her eyes sharp and knowing, as if she could see right through him. There was something almost unearthly about her, a pull that felt both magnetic and dangerous. As he parked his bicycle outside the tavern, a voice called from within, low and teasing. "You've gone and upset the lady, haven't you?" Finn stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of wood smoke and something faintly metallic. "Where's Ilara?" he asked, his eyes scanning the shadowy room. The tavern keeper, a stout woman with a grim smile, leaned forward. "She's furious with you, lad. Been sulking in the back all day. And I mean truly furious." Finn's brow furrowed, confusion mixing with a growing sense of dread. The tavern's candles flickered as a cold draft swept through, though the windows were shut tight. Somewhere in the distance, beyond the river, a low, guttural sound echoed like the growl of something not quite human. "What did I do to make her so angry?" Finn asked, his voice tinged with confusion as he stood in the dim, smoky tavern. The stout tavern keeper, Magda, leaned over the worn wooden counter, her eyes glinting with a knowing look. "It's about your fishing trip. This morning, little Tom mentioned you went fishing by the lake, and Ilara was furious. She shut down the tavern and hasn't served a soul all evening." Finn protested, his breath visible in the chilly air. Fishing's just a pastime of mine, and she knows it. Why would that make her so angry? Magda lowered her voice, as if the walls themselves were listening. I heard you promised her you'd give up fishing. So when she found out you went to the lake today, she stormed off and hasn't come back since. That girl's got a fiery temper crosser, and she'll shut you out, especially you. Magda knew there was something special between this young wanderer and Alara, the tavern's barmaid. She approved of their budding affection and had been quietly rooting for them. Alara was kind, breathtakingly beautiful, and virtuous, drawing every traveler and rogue in the village to the tavern. Among them were no shortage of charmers and scoundrels. But when Magda saw the spark between Alara and Finn, she was delighted. She loved Alara like a daughter, and saw Finn as the ideal match of future son-in-law. Perhaps, already disheartened by losing the monstrous fish at the lake, Finn now faced an even greater disappointment. He didn't linger long. As he prepared to leave, Magda grabbed his arm and whispered, her voice barely audible over the creaking of the tavern's old beams. Go around to the back door. Alara's resting in there, but something's not right. Finn's heart skipped a beat. What's wrong with her? She's hiding it, but I'll tell you. Finn, she's been struck by something dark. A heavy curse, maybe tied to that lake you've been fishing in. Before Magda could say more, Finn abandoned his bicycle and bolted around to the back of the tavern, his boots crunching on the frost-covered cobblestones. The tavern doubled as Magda's home, and no one else was there except, as she'd hinted. Alara, Alara, Finn called, his voice echoing in the foggy night. A faint, trembling voice answered from within. Don't come in. But Finn was already pushing through the creaky back door. He caught a glimpse of Alara, her face turned away, one hand covering her mouth as if hiding something unspeakable. What's wrong with you? Finn asked, stepping closer, his pulse racing. Don't look at me, she cried, her voice breaking with panic. She darted deeper into the shadowed room, calling back, Go away, let me rest in peace. But her voice turned sharp, almost guttural. Go back to your cursed fish. The window inside slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls, though no one had touched it. Finn stumbled back, a chill crawling up his spine. He met Magda outside, her face pale under the flickering lantern light. Go home, Finn, she said softly, but her eyes darted toward the lake, where an unnatural mist was rising. I'll talk to her. That girl's taken with you. You know she's in deep. So think carefully about what comes next. I'm rooting. For you. Finn managed a weak smile, torn between hope and unease. Magda's words lingered, but so did the eerie feeling that something far darker than a lover's quarrel was at play. The lake, the fish, Alara's strange behavior, it all felt connected to something ancient, something that didn't belong in this world. Go home, Finn, and if you're free tonight, grab some milk to bring back for Alara. She hasn't eaten since morning. Magda urged, her voice carrying a strange urgency as the wind howled outside the tavern. Finn pedaled back to his lodging, his mind clouded with unease. Why was Alara so upset? What could have caused such a drastic reaction from someone as gentle as her? When he arrived at the boarding house, the landlord, an old man with a weathered face, greeted him. A young lass came by earlier. She told me to give you this, and then left in a hurry. Finn took the small paper parcel and unwrapped it. His breath caught in his throat, and he gasped, Good Lord. The landlord raised an eyebrow. What is it, lad? Nothing, Finn stammered. How long ago did she leave? Quite a while. I tried to see which way she went, but when I stepped outside, she was gone, like she vanished into the mist. Finn clutched the object in his hand, his heart pounding. It was a fishing lure, the very one he'd used to hook that monstrous. fish earlier. How could it be here? Without wasting time, Finn retreated to his room. He pulled out the lure and examined it closely under the dim glow of a lantern. There was no mistake. The intricate pattern, the colors he'd painstakingly painted himself, it was undeniably his. Strange. He muttered, a chill creeping up his spine as dusk settled, casting long shadows over the village. Finn hopped back on his bicycle. He bought 5 cartons of milk and a small loaf of bread, then headed to the tavern by the river. But before he could circle to the back door, Magda intercepted him, her face pale. She's gone. Left while the sun was still up, heading toward that lake where you were fishing this morning. Finn left the milk and bread with her and pedaled furiously in the direction she indicated. The lake shore, where fishermen gathered in the morning, was now desolate under the moonlight. Not a soul, not a boat in sight. Finn was about to turn back when he spotted a figure emerging from the water, their silhouette eerily familiar. Who's out here at this hour? He whispered to himself. Instinctively, Finn followed, keeping his distance to avoid being heard. The figure, after climbing onto the bank, paused to wring out their dripping clothes before moving swiftly away. Finn trailed closely, his heart racing until he couldn't hold back any longer and called out, Elara. His voice wasn't loud, but it seemed to reach her. The figure quickened their pace, almost gliding, and within moments, vanished into the fog at the end of the path. Finn pedaled harder, desperate to catch up, but no matter how fast he went, there was no trace of her. Defeated, he returned to the tavern. After hearing his story, Magda sat in thought for a moment before speaking. Maybe you should try finding our family's home. Where do they live? Finn asked, breathless. Magda shook her head, her eyes flickering with unease. She only ever mentioned coming from a fishing village by the coast somewhere near. The cliffs of Dunwich, I think. I don't know more than that. Wait until morning, Finn. Something about that lake. It's not right. The air grew colder, and from the direction of the lake, a low, unearthly hum seemed to rise, carried by the wind. Unable to wait through the night, Finn boarded a late coach to the coastal cliffs of Dunwich that very evening. He'd passed through the area once before, so despite the pre-dawn fog cloaking the landscape, he made his way straight to the sea. After hours of inquiries, Finn finally reached the small fishing hamlet of Dunwich, a cluster of barely 100 weathered cottages. Asking after a young woman he'd only recently met, who had left her home to wander, proved maddeningly difficult. He knocked on door after door, but the villagers only shook their heads. No one named Elara around that age lives here, they said, their eyes wary, as if his questions stirred something unsettling. Finn pressed on, and fortune favored him when an elderly woman, her face lined like the cliffs themselves, nodded slowly. Up in the northern hamlet, there was a girl, about 18, named Elara, but I don't think she's home. Heart pounding, Finn pressed further. Which house? What are her parents' names? The old woman, eager to help, pointed a trembling finger. Head to the upper fishing hamlet. Ask for old Torin, the mussel dredger. That's Elara's father. Thanking her profusely, Finn hurried to the spot and found a gaunt man with a face carved by hardship standing outside a weathered cottage. He approached cautiously. Excuse me, sir, is this old Torin's house? I'm Torin, the man replied, eyeing Finn suspiciously. Who are you, and how do you know me? I've been searching for you since dawn, Finn said, breathless. Can you tell me if Elara's come back here? Torin's gaze sharpened, his lips trembling. You know Elara? Yes, I'm a friend of hers, Finn stammered. How long have you known her? Torin interrupted, his voice low and urgent. Just recently. Torin grabbed Finn's shoulder with a grip like iron. Where did you see her? Is she alive? The question hit Finn like a thunderclap, forcing him to clarify. I saw her. Just yesterday. She's fine, I swear. Torin's eyes welled with tears, and he let out a ragged cry. The saints have mercy! Elara, my girl, I thought. He dragged Finn inside, pointing to a small shrine in the corner of the cottage, where a candle flickered before a faded portrait. I've been honoring her memory there. Finn's blood ran cold. What do you mean? Torin gestured for Finn to sit, his voice thick with emotion. Almost 2 years ago, Elara was out with me, dredging mussels in the bay. A sudden wave unnatural, like the sea itself, turned against us, swept her off the boat. She vanished into the water. We searched for days, but her body was never found. I thought she'd drowned, her soul claimed by the sea. So I set up that shrine and prayed for her peace. Heaven above, you've brought hope to our broken family. Tell me, where is she now? The air in the cottage grew heavy, the candle's flame flickering wildly, as if stirred by an unseen presence. Outside, the wind carried a low, mournful wail from the direction of the cliffs, where the sea churned restlessly under a moonless sky. Finn shared in the old man's joy, his voice trembling with relief. She's in a village near the river. Ald. Ald, you say? Torin exclaimed, slapping his thigh. Of course. She must have been swept downstream and washed up there. I thought she'd been claimed by the sea, lost forever. He pointed again to the faded photographs on the shrine, his voice heavy with memory. Her mother passed just 2 weeks after giving birth to her, taken by a fever that no healer could cure. I raised Elara on my own, scraping by as a mussel dredger. Despite our hardship, she grew more beautiful with each passing year, so beautiful it frightened me. You've heard the old saying, haven't you? A radiant soul often bears a curse. Fate. The villagers whispered she was too lovely to live long, that the sea itself coveted her. I hated their words, but they haunted me. When that unnatural wave took her, I thought they were right. I wept until my eyes ran dry. Finn glanced at the portrait on the shrine. Elara's face frozen in an eerie, almost lifelike stillness. He forced a smile. She's not gone yet. Torin, Elara's out there, alive, mark my words. Torin's face lit up, a spark of hope cutting through the gloom. If she cheated death once, she's too stubborn to go again. Bless the heavens. He hurried to the door, calling back to Finn. Wait here, lad. I'll fetch a chicken from the coop. We'll feast to celebrate. Despite the old man's joy, Finn felt a creeping unease, but stayed, unable to dampen Torin's spirits. As they sat down to a humble meal later, Finn confessed, I only met Elara recently, but she was angry with me. She left the tavern yesterday, and I don't know where she's gone. Torin waved it off, still beaming. No need to fret. She's a young woman, probably sulking somewhere nearby. She'll come back when she's ready. Caught up in his optimism, Torin shuffled to a corner of the cottage and returned with a thick, worn journal. He handed it to Finn. Look at this. We were poor, and Elara only studied until she was 12, but her handwriting's finer than any scholar's. Finn flipped through the pages, intrigued by the title scrawled on the cover, Keepsake. It offered a glimpse into Elara's mind, and he felt a strange pull as he read. But when he turned to the next page, his breath caught and he gasped, What in the world? What's wrong, lad? Torin asked, leaning forward. Finn rubbed his eyes, certain he'd misread, then scanned the line again. In Elara's elegant script, it read, If he's fated to find me, he'll know the way to my home. Come to me, Finn. Finn thrust the journal toward Torin, his voice urgent. Did she know anyone named Finn when she was younger? Torin shook his head, his expression darkening. Never. My Elara, from childhood until until she was taken, never so much as spoke to a boy. Not a single one. The candle on the shrine flickered violently, though no breeze stirred the room. Outside, the wind howled, carrying the faint sound of waves crashing against the cliffs, as if the sea itself were whispering Finn's name. Asterisk, so why? Finn trailed off, handing the journal to Toren and pointing to the cryptic line. My name's Finn, but this was written years ago. How could Alara have known me back then? We'd never met. Toren's eyes widened as he read the words, his, voice trembling with disbelief. How can this be? He fixed Finn with a piercing stare. You're certain you only met Alara recently? Absolutely, Finn replied, his voice unsteady. Just under a month ago. So why this strange coincidence? Think hard. Toren, did Alara ever know anyone named Finn when she was younger? Toren shook his head firmly. Not a soul. Never. Emboldened by the mystery, Finn ventured, now that we know Ilara's alive, could I borrow this portrait from the shrine? Just for a while I'll return it, I promise. Toren, warmed by Finn's sincerity, nodded without hesitation. Take it, lad. After we eat, we'll head to the River Ald together. I need to see her. Finn clutched the portrait to his chest. A whirlwind of emotions swirling within him, hope, confusion, and an unshakable sense of dread. Asterisk, back at the tavern, Magda, the keeper, shook her head gravely. Since you left for Dunwich, Finn, Alara hasn't come back. Finn gestured to Toren. This is Toren, Alara's father. Magda's eyes softened as she pointed to a small room off to the side. Alara stayed here. I treated her like my own daughter. She worked when she wanted, rested when she needed. That girl's so charming, the customers adore her. These past 2 days without her, I've been run ragged. Half the patrons threatened to take their business elsewhere. She led Toren to the room where Alara slept, Finn trailing behind. As they entered, Finn's gaze fell on a table cluttered with trinkets. His heart skipped a beat, and he gasped, That journal, it's the same one from your house, Toren? Toren's hands trembled as he picked up the worn keepsake, his voice barely a whisper. This is it, no mistake. Finn flipped it open, his eyes widening in horror as he found the page. It's the exact same journal. Toren? He pointed to the chilling line in Alara's elegant script. If he's fated to find me, he'll know the way to my home. Come to me, Finn. He thrust the journal toward Toren. Look, it's the same words. The room grew colder, the lanterns, flame dimming as if choked by an unseen force. From somewhere beyond the tavern, a faint, eerie hum rose, like the sea itself was calling Finn's name, urging him deeper into the mystery. They recounted the strange events to Magda, who shook her head, her face pale in the flickering lantern. Light. Alara hasn't come back since yesterday. With her gone, I've kept the back door locked tight. So, Toren sat heavily, his eyes distant, then turned to Finn. Whatever it takes, I'm staying here until she returns. With Magda's permission, Toren and Finn spent the night in Alara's small room at the tavern. Finn tossed and turned, unable to sleep, haunted by the vivid image of Alara rising from the dark waters of the river, her silhouette shimmering. Unnaturally under the moonlight dot in the dead of night, Finn bolted upright as if shaken from a dream. That's it, he whispered hoarsely. It was Alara, her mouth. Something's wrong with her mouth. Ignoring the presence of Toren and Magda sleeping in the next room, Finn leapt from the bed and sprinted outside, his voice echoing in the foggy night. Alara! He ran straight to the riverbank where he'd fished, the same spot where he'd seen Alara emerge from the water. Crouching low behind the stone embankment, shrouded in darkness, Finn waited, his heart pounding, hoping his suspicions were true. Half an hour passed in eerie silence. Then, at last, his vigil was rewarded. A figure rose from the river, and Finn stifled a gasp. Elara! It was her, unmistakable, clad in dripping clothes that clung to her frame like a shroud. Unaware of being watched, she wrung out her garments and began walking forward with an unnatural grace. Finn followed, keeping his distance, his breath shallow, not yet ready to act. When she reached a shadowed, deserted stretch of the path, Finn made his move. He stepped out and grabbed her arm gently, but firmly, his voice low. I won't let anyone see you, but you have to stay and answer me. Elara froze, clearly startled, and turned her face away, shielding her mouth with a trembling hand, as if hiding something unspeakable. Finn pressed, his voice urgent. Is it your mouth? Was it the fishing hook? The question seemed to strike her like a blow. She recoiled, her body trembling violently, and would have collapsed if Finn hadn't steadied her. I went to your home, he continued, his words tumbling out. I met your father, saw the journal you wrote. You don't need to hide from me anymore. But he looked into her eyes, and his heart froze. They were filled with tears, but lifeless, glassy like the eyes of a fish pulled from the depths, staring blankly into the void. Elara, you don't have to. Finn began, but in his distraction, his grip loosened. Seizing the moment, Elara wrenched her arm free and vanished into the darkness with an unnatural speed, as if swallowed by the night itself. Finn called after her, his voice desperate. Your father's at the tavern, waiting for you. Come back to see him, I swear. I won't tell anyone about this. From the shadows, Elara's voice echoed, faint and hollow, carried by the wind like a whisper from the grave. I'll come back to the tavern. Elara's voice echoed faintly from the darkness. But you must go to the place I left written. On your hand, Finn, if you still want to find me. Finn struck a match, its feeble glow illuminating his palm. Scrawled there were the words, near the old grain mill, Aldeburgh. The letters were stark and sharp, as if burned into his skin, though. No ink marked the surface. They must have appeared when he gripped her hand so tightly by the river. But as he read them, the words shimmered and vanished before his eyes, leaving his hand bare. A chill ran through him, the air growing heavy with an unnatural stillness. Finn stepped into a weathered cottage beside the creaking, abandoned mill, only to freeze at the sight before him. A small altar stood in the center of the room, wreathed in tendrils of incense smoke, with two elderly figures sobbing beside it. Before he could speak, the old woman looked up, her tear-streaked face breaking into a cry of recognition. There. He is your Finn, aren't you? Stunned, Finn stammered. I'm Finn, but how do you know me? The woman clutched her husband's arm, her voice trembling with joy. She was right, dear. Our Nora's found her match. She's safe at last. Finn's heart lurched. He glanced around, half expecting someone to be standing behind him, but the room was empty save for the grieving couple. Did she mean him? He faltered. I don't understand. The old man spoke up, his voice hoarse but warm. My wife's overjoyed, lad. Let me explain. We've been waiting for you. Last night, our Nora came to us in a dream, saying you'd come here. Today, our daughter, Norashi, passed over a week ago, yet every night her spirit weeps, begging us to find her body. We've searched every inch of these cliffs and shores, but found nothing. The woman interrupted, her eyes wild. Last night, she was clear as day. She said only you could find her body. We had to wait for you. Finn's gaze drifted to the altar, and his blood ran cold. The portrait there, framed in black, was unmistakably Elara's face, her haunting eyes staring back at him. How can this be? He whispered, his voice shaking. Sensing his confusion, the old man explained, This portrait is why we've been weeping since midnight. That's not our Nora's face. Yet when we woke this morning, it was there, on the altar. We tried replacing it with Nora's true picture, but every time we do, it vanishes, and this face returns as if the altar itself demands it. Look, here's our Nora. He gestured to a framed photograph on the wall. A young woman, lovely but lacking Ilara's ethereal beauty. Finn murmured, almost to himself, "That other portrait. It's Ilara. You know this girl?" "The old man asked, his voice sharp with hope. Finn nodded, his throat tight. "Yes, she's the one I've been searching for. She's the one who sent me here." The incense smoke curled upward, twisting into unnatural shapes, as a low, mournful hum echoed from the cliffs outside, like the sea itself was calling Finn to unravel its secrets. In truth, Ilara had only given Finn the address and told him to come find her, without saying who or what he was searching for. The uncertainty gnawed at him, leaving him hesitant and confused. The old woman cried out again, her voice trembling with eerie conviction. "That's it. Our Nora said she and this Ilara girl were both in love with someone named Finn. It must be you." Finn faltered, his mind reeling. "But I don't know anything about your daughter. Why would she say that?" His question struck a raw nerve, and the woman's face softened with grief. "Our Nora was visiting kin near the River Ald when a sudden storm swept her away. She's been missing for a week now, lost to the sea." Finn's breath caught, and he murmured, almost to himself, "Drowned, just like Ilara." "What did you say?" the old man asked, his eyes narrowing. Finn shook his head quickly. "Nothing. Nothing at all." He stepped closer to the altar, his gaze fixed on the portrait of Ilara. Suddenly, he gasped. "This picture, it's the one from my lodging." When Finn had borrowed Ilara's portrait from Torrhen's home, he'd scrawled his name across the corner while on the boat back. A mark of possession. And there, on this altar, was the same photograph, his signature unmistakable in the dim light. "This is my picture," Finn repeated, his voice shaking. He reached out, taking the portrait from the altar and clutching it to his chest. The old woman, seeing this, quickly placed a different photograph, one of Nora, in its place. The couple's eyes lit up with fervent hope. "She's at peace now," they exclaimed. Finn paused, his thoughts racing, then spoke slowly. "There's something strange at play here. I think your daughter's spirit and Ilara's are somehow entwined. Ilara, the girl I know. She drowned in the river." "Too." The old woman blinked, her voice trembling as she recounted a chilling detail. "I don't understand why Nora, a stranger to you, would say you were her betrothed." Finn's heart skipped a beat. "Who? Nora, our daughter?" she cried. Finn waved his hands, flustered. "No, that can't be right. It must be a mistake." He started to explain, to reject the idea outright, but then his eyes met those in the portrait on the altar, not Ilara's, but Nora's. A shiver ran through him. The eyes in the photograph seemed to sparkle, glowing faintly, as if trying to speak, to pull him into some unspeakable truth. "Sir, ma'am," Finn began, his voice faltering as the air grew thick, the incense smoke curling into unnatural shapes around the altar. Finn tried to say his goodbyes, but a sudden searing pain tore through his stomach. He staggered, clutching his abdomen, his vision blurring as if the room itself were spinning. The old man, alarmed, rushed to his side. "Lad, what's wrong?" Finn's world darkened, his strength draining as he clung to the edge of the altar. He collapsed to the floor, barely conscious, faintly hearing the couple's frantic cries as they rushed to help him, their voices echoing like distant wails. In a storm, it felt like an eternity before Finn stirred awake. The room was shrouded in darkness, and through the window he saw torrents of rain lashing against the glass, the night alive with the howl of wind. "Where am I?" he murmured, his voice weak. Memories flooded back, jagged and disorienting. Finn gasped softly, realization dawning. This is her house. Elara's house. Groping in the dark, his hand brushed against a picture frame. He lifted it, and even in the dim light, he recognized Elara's haunting face. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. As he reached out again, his fingers found another frame, as if it had been placed beside him by unseen hands. Holding. Both, Finn's heart raced. He whispered to himself, 2 portraits. Stumbling from the bed, he struck a match, its feeble glow illuminating the room. There, on the bed, lay 2 frames, one of Elara, the other of Nora. Before he could process the sight, Nora's parents entered, their faces etched with confusion. "Did you call someone here, lad?" they asked. Finn shook his head. No one. "Then come outside," the old woman urged. "Someone's been waiting for you." Finn followed them to the front room, his breath catching as he saw her. Elara. Elara sat calmly in the dimly lit parlor, her presence eerily serene. Without a word, she pointed to the altar. That shrine should honor both of us, not just one. Finn glanced at the altar, now empty of Nora's portrait. He realized both frames were still in his room, but before he could speak, Elara turned to the old couple. "Mother, father, let Finn place both portraits on the altar. It's the only way he'll find peace, and do as you ask." The old woman gasped, stepping back. "Why do you call us mother and father? We don't know you?" Elara's voice grew soft, almost mournful, as she addressed the couple. "I know you, and I ask you to let Finn become part of this family. If you do, Nora and I can be together. If not," she turned to Finn, her eyes glinting with an otherworldly light, "why don't you call them mother and father too?" The rain outside intensified, the wind carrying a low, unearthly moan, as if the sea itself were demanding Finn make a choice. The portraits in his hands felt heavier, their eyes seeming to watch him, waiting for his answer. Finn was still grappling with what to do when his legs buckled beneath him, forcing him to kneel. He found himself beside Elara, both bowing before Nora's parents and the incense-wreathed altar, its smoke curling like spectral fingers in the dim light. Nora's parents, bewildered, finally spoke. "Get up, you two." Their words carried the weight of reluctant acceptance. Elara pulled Finn to his feet, her touch cold as the grave, and said, "I am Nora. By acknowledging us, you freed my soul from torment." "Let me explain, Mother. Father, I drowned, my spirit trapped in the underworld's labyrinth. There, I met another lost soul, Elara, who drifted to these shores after her own drowning. Our fates in the realm of the dead are entwined. One without a body, the other without a soul, bound together as one. And here, in this truth, both Elara and I share a connection with him." She pointed at Finn, who started, his voice trembling. "Me?" Elara didn't answer. Instead, she glided into the room where Finn had slept, returning with the 2 framed portraits. With deliberate care, she placed both hers and Nora's on the altar. "Let it be known you have 2 daughters now. Though we've both passed, we linger here, living with you each day. But now, I must return to my father by the river Ald." She took Finn's hand, her grip unnaturally firm. "Come, Finn. My father's waiting at the tavern." They moved toward the door, heedless of the old couple's cries. "Wait, what will become of us?" Outside, under the rain-soaked sky, Finn turned to Elara, his voice barely a whisper. "Are you?" Elara's lips curved into a chilling smile. "A ghost." They reached a small boat moored at the riverbank, its hull creaking as if alive. Elara continued, her voice low and haunting. "A ghost who knows no malice, but one who suffered fatally so." She raised a hand to her lips, revealing a jagged, unhealed wound. That fishing hook. If I hadn't broken free, the pain alone would have killed me. Or I'd have suffocated, stranded without water. Finn's mind flashed back to the monstrous fish he'd hooked, and he stammered, "You're a ghost. But how did I catch you?" For the first time, Ilara laughed, a sound both beautiful and unearthly. "A debt of love bound me to that hook. My fate was sealed to be yours. That's why both times you cast your line, I was caught, drawn to this moment." As the boat drifted into the river's current, Ilara's voice grew urgent. "Hurry back to the tavern, Finn. My father's waiting. As for me..." Before she could finish, she plunged into the dark, churning waters, vanishing beneath the surface as the river let out a low, mournful wail. "Ilara!" Finn called, desperate to follow her into the river, but he froze, his voice dropping to a whisper. She's gone back to her world. Old Torin had been waiting anxiously at the tavern for 3 days, his hope dwindling with each passing hour as Ilara failed to appear. Finn's absence only deepened his unease. Finn had told him he had personal matters to attend to and would return soon, but there had been no word from him since. That evening, Magda, the tavern keeper, tried to comfort Torin. "Rest easy here. Torin, Ilara will come back. She's never been gone this long from the tavern. There must be some reason." Torin shook his head, his voice heavy with dread. "Every time I close my eyes, I see her sitting on that altar, her mouth dripping with blood. I'm terrified." Magda, too, was far from calm, though she hid it. She had seen visions of her own Ilara diving beneath the river's surface, only to emerge with a face streaked with blood. She kept silent, not wanting to fuel Torin's fears at supper. It took 3 attempts to convince Torin to sit at the table. He hadn't even lifted his spoon when he noticed a perfectly prepared piece of fish in his bowl, free of bones. Surprised, he asked, "Did you put this here, Magda?" Magda, just settling at the table, shook her head. "No, I only just sat down." "Then how?" Torin trailed off, staring at the boneless fish, a mix of wonder and unease in his eyes. "I've always dreaded fish bones, but this is just like the pieces Ilara used to carefully pick for me when we ate together." Though puzzled, Torin ate, savoring the familiar taste. He continued, "Ilara loved making a special herb dip for fish. No matter how stormy the weather, she'd go out to gather wild thyme for us. That dip with fish was divine. Have you tried it, Magda?" Magda lifted the cloth covering a side dish, intending to offer some pickled greens. "No time here, but try these asterisk." She stopped dead, her breath catching. Beneath the cloth was a small bowl of fresh wild thyme, its scent unmistakable. Magda stared, disbelief etched on her face. I gathered these myself. They were greens, not thyme. How?" Torin, though startled, smiled faintly. "These are Ilara's favorites." He continued eating, but Magda couldn't shake her unease. "Tonight feels wrong," she murmured. "It's as if Ilara herself prepared this meal." The fire in the tavern flickered, casting long, wavering shadows across the walls. Outside, the river Ald churned restlessly, its waters whispering secrets in the dark. As if Ilara's presence lingered in the very air, Torin felt the same eerie sensation, but dismissed it, eating heartily, as if nothing were amiss. As the meal neared its end, a loud crash echoed from the tavern's kitchen, startling Magda. She dropped her spoon and rushed to investigate, only to freeze in shock. 2 bowls of steaming green bean pudding sat on the counter, prepared by Unseen. Hands, their warmth unnatural in the chilly air. Magda's voice trembled as she called out, "Who's in here?" She searched every corner, but the kitchen was empty. Torin joined her, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the pudding. "Green bean pudding. Ilara and I used to love this." Magda's heart pounded, her thoughts racing to Ilara. A chilling intuition gripped her, but she held her tongue. Afraid to voice the impossible dot after the meal, Torin leaned back, satisfied. It's been ages since I had a meal that felt like home, like something Ilara would have made. You're a fine cook, Magda. That evening, Finn returned to the tavern. The moment Torin saw him, he demanded, "Where's Ilara?" Finn had rehearsed his words on the way back, choosing honesty. "Sir, Ilara might be—" Before he could finish, a familiar voice cut through the air from the kitchen. "I'm here, Father." Ilara stepped into the room, her presence sending a shockwave through the tavern. Torin, Magda, and even Finn stared, wide-eyed. You? Finn stammered. When Ilara had plunged into the river, Finn had been certain she wouldn't return to face her father. Yet here she was, standing calmly before them. Relief washed over Finn, but it was fleeting. He hadn't yet shared the full truth, and Torin, too overwhelmed with joy to question her, didn't press for details. "I've been waiting for you for days, Ilara," he exclaimed. "Tell me, how did you survive that drowning? How did you end up here?" "Someone saved me," Ilara said, her voice soft, evasive, her eyes avoiding theirs. Torin, caught in the euphoria of her return, rambled on. "Come, eat. There's roasted fish with pepper, and green bean pudding, too. Magda cooked it just like you used to, delicious." Ilara's face twisted in distaste. "Fish? I'm terrified of fish, too many bones. And green bean pudding? I've always hated it." Her words struck Torin like a blow. He stared, dumbfounded. In just a few months away, his beloved daughter had changed beyond recognition. "You've only been gone a short while," he said, his voice faltering. "How can you be so different, Ilara?" Only Finn understood the truth. He wanted to speak, to reveal what he knew, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he tried to deflect, searching for a way to ease the moment. But the air grew heavier, the tavern's lanterns flickering, as if stirred by an unseen presence. Outside, the river all churned, its whispers growing louder, as if the water itself knew the secret Finn couldn't bring himself to voice. "I think being away from home so long has changed Ilara," Finn said, grasping for an explanation. "Plus, she's just been through an illness, so—" He gently pulled Ilara into the back room, his voice a hushed whisper. "Your body may be Ilara's, but your soul is Nora's. That's why nothing aligns with Torin's memories. For now, it's best to avoid him as much as you can." Finn turned to Torin, choosing his words carefully. "You've seen Ilara, sir, but she's bound by a long-term commitment elsewhere. Stay here a few days, then head home. When she's free, Ilara will visit you. I'll make sure." Torin cut him off, his eyes gleaming with an unexpected idea. "I've a better plan. Why don't I give Ilara's hand to you in marriage? That way, I'd rest easy knowing she's cared for, even so far from home. What do you say, lad?" Finn, though he'd felt a strange pull toward Ilara, feigned hesitation. I'm not sure if—" Torin called Ilara out. "Here, in front of Magda, I've decided to betroth you to Finn. Do you agree, Ilara?" Ilara remained silent, her expression unreadable, her eyes glinting with an otherworldly light. Magda chimed in, her voice warm but tinged with unease. "Torin's decision suits her well. Finn may be a stranger lodging here, but I know he's unattached. He's been coming to this tavern for Ilara, and it's clear they're fond of each other. They're a perfect match. What more could you want?" Torin, caught in a surge of enthusiasm, made an even more startling declaration. "No need for a grand affair. Tonight, we'll have Magda prepare a modest feast, invite a few regulars who know Ilara and some of Finn's friends. I'll arrange a simple wedding for them right here. Finn's gaze met Ilara's, his lips parting to speak, but a strange chill stopped him. Her eyes seemed to flicker, as if holding a secret only the shadows knew. The next morning, the wedding took place as Torin had decreed, under the dim glow of the tavern's lanterns, the air heavy with an unspoken tension. The day after, Finn arranged for a trusted friend to escort Torin back to his coastal village. Magda, unaware of the full truth, made an offer. "Why don't I give you two the back room to live in? I'll move to the front to tend the tavern." Finn declined politely, his voice low. "Thank you, Magda, but we'd prefer a quieter place, somewhere private. Besides, Ilara's with child. She needs rest." Magda's eyes widened in shock. "Truly?" Ilara darted into the back room, her movements swift and unnatural. Once Finn followed, she turned on him, her voice sharp. "Why would you say I'm pregnant?" "I'm not." Finn gave a wry smile. "I had to say something to get you out of working here. How else could I explain?" The lanterns flickered, casting long, wavering shadows across the walls. Outside, the River Ald whispered, its voice carrying a faint, mournful note, as if it knew the truth Finn dared not fully voice. Ilara, aware of her true nature, fell silent, content to keep her secret veiled. The truth about Ilara and Finn remained hidden, a mystery unnoticed by the world. They rented a secluded cottage far from the village, ensuring few visitors ever disturbed their solitude. By day, Finn lived the life of an ordinary man, but at night, Ilara would appear, her presence marked by a chill in the air and the faint whisper of the River Ald beyond the windows. One night, she spoke, her voice carrying an eerie urgency. "You must return to my parents' home at once. Their time is running out. Go and arrange their rights properly." Finn assumed she meant Dunwich, her father's village, and began preparing to leave. But Ilara stopped him, her eyes glinting with an otherworldly light. "Not there. I mean, my other parents in Aldeburgh. Have you forgotten?" Finn's heart sank as he recalled his dual role, bound to two families by a spectral pact. He nodded, abashed. "Right, I understand." From then on, Finn made periodic journeys, sometimes to Dunwich, other times to Aldeburgh, playing the part of the dutiful son-in-law with an uncanny grace, as if guided by forces beyond his control. A year later, under a moonless sky, Ilara appeared. In the cottage, cradling a newborn child still in its swaddling. "Raise her well, Finn," she said, her voice both tender and haunting. "This is our daughter." Finn stared, certain he was dreaming. "Is this real? Why wouldn't it be?" Ilara replied, her smile tinged with the chill of the grave. "Even a union with a spirit can bear fruit, as real as any other." Finn raised the child alone, tending to her with unwavering care. When curious neighbors asked about the girls, "Mother," the child would answer with an innocent smile, "My two mothers are away, working far off." The words sent a shiver through those who heard them, as if the child unknowingly carried the weight of a truth tied to the restless waters of the Ald, where whispers of Ilara's presence lingered in the night.